Every year, a new wave of small tools shows up, tools that take the simplest materials and turn them into products people actually pay for. Most folks never notice them, but they're the reason small creators, tiny brands, and one-person shops keep appearing out of nowhere. The equipment got better, smaller, smarter, and way more profitable. And the people using it aren't influencers, aren't chasing trends, and aren't trying to go viral. They're just using the right machines at the right moment and quietly making real money because of it. Let me show you how they do it. If you look at the visual styles currently dominating Pinterest and Behance, it becomes obvious. Interior posters are going through another popularity wave. And not thanks to complex artist-made pieces, but thanks to styles built on color, shape, and atmosphere. One of the most stable trends is retro-futurism. And the key point here is that these visuals are naturally large-scale. They're created for size, for a wall, for a room, for an interior. That's why this category aligns so well with equipment like a wide-format printer. When an image is printed in a large format, it stops being just a picture. It becomes part of the space. A laminator finishes the entire story. Glossy film boosts the glow, while matte film makes the image calmer and more interior-friendly. As a result, you get the kind of posters people actually buy. When I first came across this thing, I couldn't imagine a brewery could look like a coffee machine. The whole brewing process basically comes down to loading the ingredients, closing the lid, and pressing a button. To visualize it easier, think of Hank from Breaking Bad. He brewed his beer by hand, building a little garage lab. Zymatic is the same idea of making your own drink, just without the chaos of containers, a compact machine working by program. You control the recipe literally down to the gram of malt and the second of boiling. Want a beer with a light mango aroma? Go ahead. It brews just enough not for treating friends, but for a small, properly assembled batch. That's enough to get a few dozen bottles. Large bars, local projects, event organizers, micro brands, all of them sometimes need a small run of their own drink. Not 50 gallons, not a factory shipment, but a limited release tied to an idea. Bottling is a separate topic. You need standard-sized glass bottles, metal caps, and a simple manual capper, all inexpensive, sold as ready-made kits. Labels can be printed yourself. Any graphics you want, meme style, minimalism, serious corporate design, anything works. Most people who hear about custom rings imagine the same process. You take a pre-made blank, put it under a laser, and get a dark engraving on top. It's the most common method, fast, but basically just a drawing on the surface. But there's equipment that works completely differently. It doesn't burn the metal, it physically cuts symbols and letters into the body of the ring. That's not engraving, it's carving. And in terms of feel, it's much closer to real jewelry work than to typical customization. The difference in approach is obvious even on Etsy. Laser engraved rings cost around $20–$30, while carved rings sit in a completely different segment. $100, $150, sometimes $200 per piece. And the beauty is that the machine does it automatically. The ring is fixed strictly in the center, and the carving follows the trajectory you set in the software. This machine doesn't create the niche of engraving on rings, it creates the niche of metal carving on jewelry. A completely different level of perception, and even people with no experience can see the difference. Powders have a funny trait. As long as they sit in a big bag, they're just a mass without meaning. But once you pour the material into a small jar or a pouch with a proper label, it instantly becomes a clear, ready-made product. An entire category of small goods is built on this. Bath mixes, baking additives, craft materials. To work here, all you need are jars or stand-up pouches with a Ziploc. The magic starts with the packaging itself. Imagine a 2-pound bag of gypsum mix. White dust, zero interest. But if you place 3 small packets next to it, one with pink pigment, one with blue, one with golden shimmer, the picture changes. It's no longer construction material, it becomes a craft kit. The same principle applies to other categories. Fruit powders turn into mini tasting sets. Bath salts become small aromatic kits. Decorative sprinkles become baking sets. And cleaning compositions become neat portioned kitchen packets. Here, the product doesn't appear because of complex manufacturing. It appears because someone created a convenient format. There are craftsmen who create three-dimensional wooden pieces by hand, with chisels, gouges, hours of shaping a single line, constant sanding. It's beautiful, but this approach has its limits. First, precision. No matter how hard a person tries, handmade work always leaves traces. A deeper spot here, a slight angle there, a line drifting a bit off somewhere. Second, repeatability. Making a second identical board or sign is almost impossible. It'll be somewhat similar, but not a copy. Third, time. Any complex shape becomes hours of work, and if you mess up, you can't put wood back. This is exactly why desktop CNC routers exist. They're not trying to outdo a human creatively, they take over the part where humans lose. You define the shape once, and the machine cuts it exactly as in the file. You watch, and you see the volume emerge from an ordinary board. Etsy is full of small shops selling exactly these kinds of neatly milled items. Card-making machines seem too homemade to many people. Just paper, some cutouts, shiny foil. But once you see an electric plotter working together with an embossing and foiling machine, it becomes clear this is no longer just crafts. The plotter cuts cardboard the way only a machine can. The foiling unit lays metal onto text as if it were a real print shop. And if you connect a pen plotter, signatures and drawings come out looking like they were made by someone with perfect handwriting. The whole result looks like a small design studio touched it. But in reality, it's just a regular desk and a few compact devices. The interest appears when you start noticing where these things actually matter. Not in mass market stores, but where the idea and the mood matter. Wedding invitations, tiny series for small events, cards for small brands, short-themed runs. These places always need a small but expressive batch. And you don't need many supplies to do it. Cardboard of different densities, some foil, a couple of stencils, blades for the needed shapes, envelopes. The machines handle the technical part. The rest is style choices and careful hands. Cakes with printed images have long been common, but few people think about how they're made. The process is simple. The image is printed on edible sugar paper using the same motions as printing a photo on a home printer, only the ink is food grade. You get a thin, edible sheet that's placed on top of the cake. After a few minutes, it absorbs into the cream, and the image becomes part of the surface. Then the usual pastry work remains. Cake layers, cream, smoothing the top on a rotating stand, that's it. At this stage, you don't need artistic skills or complex techniques. The whole effect comes from the printed image, and the cost stays low. An edible sheet, food-grade ink, any basic cake, and you have a product that feels personal. Some products are more profitable not to invent, but to package. Literally, take a good basic liquid in bulk and turn it into a neat product in small batches. That's why small brands long ago adopted the practice. They buy normal liquid soap, wood surface oil, kitchen sprays, or all-purpose cleaning liquids, and produce small runs for a specific format. That's where a filling machine makes sense, not as the core of the business, but as a tool that removes the most tedious and chaotic part. When you need 20-50 identical bottles, a funnel can turn the workspace into a sea of drips and scattered tissues. The rest is pure assembly. Bottles in one consistent style, a simple label printer, a small applicator so the stickers don't go crooked. In the end, the same liquid bought in bulk becomes a product that looks put together and ready for sale. Snacks are one of those categories where added value works almost shamelessly. Nuts, cheap, seasoning, even cheaper. But the moment it becomes a flavor, the price jumps. Not because the ingredients are rare or complex, but because the raw material stops being raw material and becomes a finished product. You buy the base, nuts in large bulk bags, because that's cheaper. Then you choose a couple of flavors you want to create. Finding seasonings is easy. They're sold in the same places as regular spices. No need for development or weeks of experiments. Just use blends that give a clear flavor. To make it look like a real product, you need packaging, small jars or pouches that look proper and don't feel like something homemade. A printer, sticker paper, a simple label, and the finished portion gets its own identity. A machine that tumbles the mix simply helps in the background. It doesn't make the product better or magically stable, it just removes part of the repetitive work when you need to prepare several small batches in a row.